All right, after so many technical difficulties, I am finally about ready to record my watching of Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, their first vice presidential nomination announcement, the speech that they made. I skipped ahead to the Kamala Harris part, which is about 18 minutes. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today. Again, I told you all up until election day, I'm going to be bringing you all the coverage on the election, especially since they got Kamala Harris up in here and Joe Biden, along with Donald Trump and Mike Pence. People keep saying you should just vote for the lesser of two evils, but since when does that make sense? It doesn't. So I'm just going to be bringing it to you straight. I'm going to have commentary on the Republican side, commentary on the Democratic side, but this is the latest news. So I'm going to be talking about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's vice presidential candidate announcement. Cut to the Kamala Harris part, and so that's what I'm going to be looking at, talking about, and just seeing what she says. I started watching it, and I heard a lot of platitudes, so I said, you know what, let me cut it back. Let me take this and let me review this for the audience so they can get what I'm thinking straight out of my mouth the first time I see it. So let me go ahead and hit play on this. It is the about again 18 minutes long. Former Vice President Biden's going to introduce Kamala, and yeah, we'll just go from there. We'll go from there. Sorry about the glare. I'm going to try to keep that out of there. And yes, y'all see my little dreads? They looking good. This is my quarantine COVID dreads. But let me keep going. All right, so here we go.
We need to get to work.
All right, so here, let me turn it up loud. I think y'all can hear it.
Crises we find ourselves in.
Computer's loud.
Getting our economy back on track, uniting this nation, and yes, winning the battle for the soul of America. My fellow Americans,
I'm just gonna say up front, I'm surprised that Biden is coherent as he is. I'm waiting for him to stumble, but they must have given him he must have gotten a lot of sleep. They gave him whatever the clarity pills are. Because I'll be honest, most times when he's in that basement, he talking about Trump being in the bunker. Most times you see Biden in that basement, he's barely coherent. So I'm surprised that they must have been saving his energy for this moment.
now let me introduce to you, for the first time, your next Vice President of the United States, Kamala.
Look at Kamala.
Kamala.
Cheese it. She cheesed it. Oh, I knew she was going to do it. Oh, they put down a little stool for her. I don't know how tall she is, but they put down a little stool for her. I cannot believe how she is cheesing. All right, let me get that off the screen. I hope that'll go off.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Kamala is cheesing.
As I said, Joe,
I love
when you
it.
called me, I am incredibly honored by this responsibility. And I'm
She
ready
always
to
give
get
you
to work.
the little side here
I'm
with the
ready
neck.
to get to work.
Every time.
After the most competitive primary in history, the country received
And now we get the
a
teleprompter.
resounding message that Joe was the person to lead us forward. And Joe, I'm so proud to stand with you.
See him calling him Joe.
I do
No more
so mindful
Vice President Biden.
of
Should
all
we
the
get Joe?
heroic and ambitious women before me, whose sacrifice, determination, and resilience makes my presence here today even possible. This is a moment of real.
All I'm hearing so far are platitudes. She's talking about the women who made it possible before you. Who? Who are you talking about in particular? Who are you talking about who made it possible before you? I'm quite done with the platitudes. If you have somebody who you think you represent, whose shoulders you are standing on, then say that, because that is what has happened time and time again. Is specificity has been diminished, and we get these platitudes of all women and all people when that's not the truth. There are specific women who have made it possible for Kamala Harris to be there, ADOS women, whose place she stands in, African American women, and I don't see that being recognized.
Consequence for America. Everything we care about, our economy, our health, our children, the kind of country we live in, it's all on the line. We're reeling from
Kamala's
the
also
worst
looking alert.
public health
They had her
crisis
looking
in
like
a century.
Botox face the other day, whatever she was on.
The president's mismanagement of the pandemic has plunged us into the worst.
And we saw recently that Donald Trump has given to Kamala Harris's campaigns. I don't remember if it was either as AG or as a prosecutor, probably as AG, when he was in California. At least $6,000 Donald Trump gave during the past. So let's keep that in mind as we hear her talk about who gives to who.
Economic crisis since the Great Depression. And we're experiencing a moral reckoning with racism and systemic injustice that has brought a new coalition of conscience to the streets of our country, demanding change.
Y'all saw how she tried to throw that in there, saying that this is a new awakening, a new conscience that we're having. No, Kamala. This police brutality has existed since police in America have existed, i.e. since slavery, since slave patrols, and they've morphed into policing. This movement for civil rights is centuries old. The movement for actual African American representation in the White House is centuries old. The fight for rights to be able to walk, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created, but that we have our creators with certain unalienable rights that are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are not new arguments. So yes, you were a bad prosecutor, but don't try to take this moment to say that you didn't know any better back then, or that these are new fights. No, these fights existed when you were a prosecutor. These fights existed when you were an AG. They are not new. Don't try. You're not gonna skate your way out of accountability here. Y'all gotta watch this double language. Watch this.
America is crying out for leadership.
She's trying to say that this is new. No, Kamala, it is not new. It is not new. Don't do this. Don't try to say that this is a new moment in history, that you have no responsibility or no accountability for your record over the last decades. You are accountable for that. So I want to hear you be accountable for that in the next 14 minutes of this speech. It's okay. Let's just go.
Yet we have a president who cares more about himself than the people who elected him. A president who is making every challenge we face even more difficult to solve. But here's the good news. We don't have to accept the failed government of Donald Trump and Mike Pence. In just 83 days, we have a chance to choose a better future for our country. So, Joe, Dr. Biden.
There she go cheese it again. Kamala happy. I swear, if she anything, she happy.
An incredible first lady.
Look,
my husband Doug and I are.
I'm not gonna pretend to know Kamala. I didn't grow up with her. We ain't from the same neighborhood, but she is an ambitious woman, and you can tell by the excitement on her face that she is happy to be there. And that's what scares me, is that not that she's ambitious, that she is ambitious to a fault, to the point where she will do any and everything to climb the ladder. And I'm not going to talk about her past and the rumors about who she's had relationships to benefit politically, but don't be so ambitious that you'll do anything to keep climbing to the top. At some point, you got to say, I'm willing to sacrifice my position and my title and everything else to advocate for what is right, to vote for what is right. And I don't know if I see that in Kamala.
Grateful to become a part of your extended family. And ever since I received Joe's call, I've been thinking, yes, about the first Biden that I really came to know, and that, of course, is Joe's beloved son.
She was good friends with Beau Biden. I believe he was an AG in
the midst of the Great
somewhere in the
Recession,
Northeast. They were AGs together, so they got to know each other pretty well.
Sometimes multiple times a day.
Beau Biden, of course, died from brain cancer a couple years ago. He is, if I'm being perfectly honest, known as he's the good Biden son. We got Hunter and we got Beau. Hunter was kicked out of the Navy on supposedly testing positive for cocaine, has been affiliated with the Ukrainian oil company being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for advisory work, and has had, again, really odd relationships that most people would think, okay, that is a lot. So yeah, Bo is the other son. Bo is the other one.
Together to
Who
win
passed
back
away.
billions of dollars for
Rest in
homeowners
peace. Yeah.
from the big banks of the nation that were foreclosing on people's homes. And let me just tell you about Bo Biden. I learned quickly that Bo was the kind of guy who inspired people to be a better version of themselves. He really was the best of us. And when I would ask him, where'd you get that? Where did this come from? He'd always talk about his dad.
This is a trick, and I see this coming, where you spend your whole, you know how you get up for somebody's retirement or you get up for their birthday, wedding, you're like, oh, I had to give a speech. Like, I don't even know this person that well, and I don't even really like them, so I'm gonna have to make this whole freaking. Well, you don't consciously say this, but this is what happens. You make that whole speech about yourself or somebody else as it relates to the person you're celebrating. So Kamala, this whole time, has been talking about how great a person Bo Biden is, and I believe her, how great a person he was. But that's not Joe. That ain't Jim Crow Joe. And so just watch that at play. How many good things can Kamala actually say about Joe Biden? We'll see.
And I will tell you, the love that they shared was incredible to watch. It was the most beautiful display.
Dang, he looked just like the memes that they make of him. Them little memes with his
and Bo
looking like a
about how
crypt
Joe
creepy-
would spend
crypt
4
keeper.
hours every day riding the rails back and forth from Wilmington to Washington so he could make breakfast for his kids in the morning and make it home in time to tuck them in bed each night. All of this so 2 little boys who had just lost their mom and their sister in a tragic accident would know that the world was still turning.
And of course, that's always been a
that's
part of Joe
how I
Biden's
came to know
story, is
Joe.
how he tragically lost his family
He's
early in
someone
his career in a car accident. And his wife now, Dr. Jill Biden, is his second wife, who remarried after all that happened, just for context.
First response when things get tough is never to think about himself, but to care for everyone else. He's someone who never asks, why is this happening to me? And instead asks, what can I do to make life better?
And I'll give it to Joe Biden. And then I'm going to let the video play. That Joe Biden is known for being sympathetic, empathetic, for being a compassionate person. He's devoted a lot of his time to cancer research after his son has passed away. And look, I don't want some stranger who I've never met coming up and hugging me. So I'm not going to excuse Joe Biden's behavior. But people will excuse him for this reason and say that a lot of his behavior can be attributed to losing his family. I don't think that excuses it. I think as a public figure, you can't assume that anybody wants to be hugged by you or massaged or anything. But I think Kamala's attempt right here is she's going to attempt to paint him as sympathetic because of the tragedy that he's experienced, both from losing his family early in his career in a car accident, and then losing his son, Bo Biden, a few years ago to brain cancer. This is the only thing we can do at this point, and I'm not going to make light of these tragedies, but after being the author of mass incarceration in the 90s, and then dating all the way back into the 70s, and saying on the record that you don't understand why the United States of America would give reparations to descendants of slavery because, what have they suffered, then this has to be the attempt to paint you as sympathetic and empathetic and as Uncle Joe or Pop Joe.
For you. His empathy, his compassion, his sense of duty to care for others is why I am so proud to be on this ticket. And Joe and I, yes, we are cut from the same cloth. Family is everything to me too. And I cannot wait for America to get to know my husband Doug and our amazing kids Cole and Ella. Because whether I'm cheering in the bleachers at a swim meet, or setting up a college room dorm, or helping my goddaughter prepare for her school debate, or building Legos with my godson, or hugging my 2 baby nieces, or cooking dinner, Sunday dinner, my family means everything to me. And I've had a lot of titles over my career, and certainly Vice President will be great. But Mamala will always be
Mamala. And now we get Mama Kamala. Because Kamala doesn't, these are Kamala's stepkids. Again, that doesn't diminish her relationship with them at all. But I think this is another time. Understand the politics. Understand what is happening here. Understand what happened with Obama being the nuclear family. Obama with the black wife and the black kids, the African American wife and the African American kids. Understand the attempt here to paint Kamala in the same way as having a nuclear family with the husband and the kids. That is what is happening here. So Kamala has been seen as that staunch prosecutor, that staunch senator, the person who's harassed, if you may say, the senators and the people that appear before the Senate. And the Supreme Court justice nomination. She has been the bottom line, the one who said, I'm going to be tough on you. And so this is an attempt right here to soften Kamala, if I do say so myself.
And my mother and father, they came from opposite sides of the world to arrive in America. One from India.
And I already see where we're going here. Kamala, when the ADOS African American Black story didn't work for her in the primaries. I'm just gonna predict it right now. Kamala is Black and Indian, or Black and Asian. She is Indian and Jamaican. She is, I believe, can see that she is Black American. She's not African American. She's not ADOS. And so we saw polling 6th among African Americans in the primary that angle. Launching her campaign on MLK Day, launching her campaign at HBCU, it didn't work because she still polled lower among African Americans. So it seems like at this moment she's using her immigrant story. We'll see if that's the case.
And the other from Jamaica, in search of a world-class education. But what brought them together was the civil rights movement of the 1960s.
Latino growing ethnic group, largest ethnic group, growing voting class. Appealing to
marching and shouting for this thing called
it is
justice,
what it is.
In a struggle that
just see it
today. And I was part of it. My parents would bring me to protests strapped tightly in my stroller.
What protests?
My mother, Shamala, raised my sister Maya and me.
I keep seeing these reports that her mom was a civil rights activist.
And
for what? I'm not saying it wasn't true, but for what?
To keep on marching. She'd tell us, don't sit around and complain about things. Do something. So I did something.
You see, she got the neck going again.
To making real the words
that's her.
Carved in the United States Supreme Court, equal justice under law. And 30 years ago, I stood before a judge for the first time, breathed deep, and uttered the phrase that would truly guide my career and the rest of my career. Kamala Harris for the people. The people. That's who I represented as district attorney, fighting on behalf of victims who needed help. The people. That's who I fought for as California's attorney general, when I took on transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns and drugs and human beings. And it's the people who I have fought for as a United States Senator, where I've worked every day to hold Trump officials accountable to the American people.
Notice no
And
specifics.
the people are who Joe and I will fight
we get a long list of platitudes, but no specifics, no numbers, no data.
Somebody who has presented my
but some
vague
the
case
resume.
Against Donald Trump
Ask yourself why.
Pence is open and shut. Just look where they've gotten us. More than 16 million out of work. Millions of kids who cannot go back to school. A crisis crisis of poverty, of homelessness, afflicting Black, brown, and indigenous people the most. A crisis.
Upwards of 40% of homeless people in America are African American descendants of slavery, AOS Black people, if we don't disaggregate. But more than likely, American descendants of slavery. This is the problem with BIPOC. This is the problem with Black and brown. We diminish the very real impact on African Americans. And this is why I say Kamala Harris is not good for Black people, not good for Black America, not good for African Americans, not good for American descendants of slavery, whatever your designator is. When we get lumped all together, then our problems get lumped together and nobody gets help.
Of hunger, afflicting 1 in 5 mothers who have children that are hungry. And tragically, more than 165,000 lives that have been cut short. Many with loved ones who never got the chance to say goodbye. It didn't have to be this way. 6 years ago, in fact, we had a different health crisis. It was called Ebola. And we all remember that pandemic. But you know what happened then? Barack Obama.
Don't buy the fallacy. We all know that Ebola was not the same crisis worldwide as coronavirus is. Listen to what Kamala's going to say and take heed in what she's saying. But let's not pretend that Ebola was ever the same likelihood, was ever the same level of contagious, was ever the same level of a pandemic, was ever a threat to, ever a threat at the level coronavirus is a threat at.
And Joe Biden did their job. Only 2 people in the United States died. 2. That is what's called leadership. But compare that to the moment we find ourselves in now. When other countries are following the science, Trump pushed miracle cures he saw on Fox News. While other countries were flattening the curve, he said the virus would just, poof, go away.
Again, it's not like I'm going to vote for Trump or Pence. Trump's handling of coronavirus has been abysmal, terrible. We should have been out of this crisis a long time ago. It is now August. We should have been out of this crisis back in May or June. It's a failure on both sides at this point.
Quote, like a miracle. So when other countries opened back up for business, what did we do? We had to shut down again. This virus has impacted almost every country. But there's a reason it has hit America worse than any other advanced nation. It's because of Trump's failure.
It's because we're hard-headed. America's always been hard-headed. Hence the American Revolution, hence the Civil War, hence us butting our heads into everybody's business but our own. It's what we are. We're we're the world's nosy neighbor. America's always in somebody's business, and that is why we're at where we're at.
Seriously, from the start. His refusal to get testing up and running. His flip-flopping on social distancing and wearing masks. His delusional belief that he knows better than the experts. All of that is reason. And the reason that an American...
Look, I get that this is a race, and Kamala it's her job as vice presidential candidate to win and to paint Trump and Pence as incompetent. But I hope at some point Kamala Harris is talking about her plan to make sure that the hardest hit populations, African Americans at the beginning of the crisis, mid-crisis, Latinas and Latinx folks now. What is your plan to get these folks health care, to stop the spread of the virus? I want to hear those specifics before you tell me that you're the better choice.
Of COVID-19 every 80 seconds. It's why countless businesses have had to shut their doors for good. It's why there is complete chaos over when and how to reopen our schools. Mothers and fathers are confused and uncertain and angry about childcare and the safety of their kids at school, whether they'll be in danger if they go.
Again, I'm waiting for Kamala to say anything about her record. Kamala Harris is AG prosecutor. Your specific record on the issues that you're discussing: healthcare, poverty, immigration, any of these things.
Or fall behind if they don't. Trump is also the reason millions of Americans are now unemployed. He inherited the longest economic expansion in history from Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And then, like everything else he inherited, he ran it straight into the ground. Because of Trump's failures of leadership, our economy has taken one of the biggest hits out of all the major industrialized nations, with an unemployment rate that has tripled as of today. This is what happens when we elect a guy who just isn't up for the job. Our country ends up in tatters, and so does our reputation around the world. But let's be clear, this election isn't just about defeating Donald Trump or Mike Pence. It's about building this country back.
Okay, let's hear it. What's the plan?
And that's exactly what Joe and I will do.
What's the plan?
We'll create millions of jobs
How?
and fight climate change
How?
through a clean energy revolution. Bring back critical
Containing what?
supply chains so
How?
the future is made in America. Build on the Affordable Care Act
How?
so everyone has the peace of mind that comes with health insurance. And finally, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay
What caregivers?
they deserve.
In what circumstances?
Will protect a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own
Great, I
body.
applaud that. I think you should do that.
Root out systemic racism in our justice
How?
system.
When you're
And pass a new
Kamala,
Voting Rights Act,
top cop,
a
and Joe Biden's out there mass incarceration bill.
Act that will ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. The civil rights struggle is nothing new to Joe. It's why he got into public service.
Yeah, he's
It's
been
why
working
he
his whole
helped
career to
reauthorize
undo
the
it.
Voting Rights Act and restore unemployment discrimination and employment discrimination laws. And today, he takes his place in the ongoing story of America's march
Great, so
toward
people
equality
who
and
look like him
justice
can
as
keep their
only-
jobs.
as the
What has he
only-
done for people who do not look like him?
as the only who has served alongside the first black president and has chosen the first black woman as his running mate.
Black, you see. Oh, Asian?
But
Asian,
as
right, too,
Joe
also?
always points out,
Kamala's also half, as my understanding. Her mother was born in India. Half Indian. Why is Kamala not mentioning that part of her? As I understand it, she would also be the first Indo-Jamaican American vice presidential candidate. Meaning I can't separate those parts of her. Maybe she does. Maybe Kamala doesn't consider herself also Asian American. That's what I'm hearing right now. And so if that's the case, that's the case. But I want that to be clear so that when you see the headlines and people refute them and say, this is not what I understand about her, this is not how she's represented herself, you understand why they're saying that.
this election is about more than politics. It's about who we are as a country. And I'll admit, over the past 4 years, there have been moments when I have truly worried about our future. But whenever I think that there is a reason for doubt, whenever I've had my own doubts, I think of you, the American people, the doctors and nurses and frontline workers who are risking your lives to save others, the truck drivers and the workers in grocery stores, in
Platitudes.
factories, in
Ask her what
farms,
she's really saying.
working there, putting
Except
your
stringing
own
pretty words
safety
together.
on the line to help us get through this pandemic.
But I
The women and
appreciate the
students
appreciation.
taking to the streets in unprecedented numbers. The dreamers and immigrants who know that families belong together. The LGBTQ Americans who know that love is
Got to
love.
get everybody in there so everyone
People
feels
of every
included.
age and color and creed who are finally
Platitudes reminds me
declaring
of
in
Pete.
one voice
Pete and Obama,
that yes, Black
the
Lives
woman
Matter.
version.
All across this country, a whole new generation of children is growing up hearing the cries for justice and the chants of
cries for justice that, again,
on
you
which
fought against your
I
whole
was
entire
raised.
career.
Some strapped into strollers of their own. And trust me, it's a song you'll never forget.
That's not okay. It is not a good thing that you have kids and strollers out protesting for their human rights. Who thinks it's cute or okay to see a baby who can barely walk, a black baby, holding a sign saying, I matter, in a protest? That's not okay. That's not something to smile about or be proud of, or to cheer on. Babies should not have to be out there protesting. This is crazy that anyone would think that that's something to be proud of or to hold in high regard. Yes, I think you should teach your children about the way America is, and to help them understand why there are protests happening, and even take them out there. I've done it myself, but children shouldn't have to do it, and it's not cute.
So to everyone keeping up the fight, you are doing something. You are doing something great. You are the heroes of our time.
Kamala, I want you to do
And
something
you
great.
are the
That's all I
reason.
can ask.
I know we are going to bring our country closer to realizing its great promise. But to do it, we'll need to work, organize, and vote like never before, because we need more than a victory on November 3rd. We need a mandate that
Now we go
proves that
into
the past 2 years
infomercial
do not
mode.
represent who we are or who we
Kamala's
aspire
crazy.
to be.
I could do this infomercial better.
Joe likes to
I always say my
that
dream job is to be a
character
jingle writer.
is on the ballot. And
But yeah,
it's
she's
true.
trying to get folks to vote out
When
there
he
and vote.
saw
We're
what
not getting out there for you,
Charlottesville
Kamala.
years ago today,
Quit
we knew
it!
We were in a battle for the soul of our
We're not voting for you.
And together with your help,
I already saw your negative polling.
earlier
You're
this
polling
year, I said,
unfavorable 34% to
I'd do
favorable
whatever Joe asked me
32%.
to do. And so
Now
now
let me
I'm
finish.
asking
Let's
you
go
to
ahead and
do the
finish
same.
this.
So visit joebiden.com to get involved in this campaign and vote. Because electing Joe Biden is just the start of the work ahead of us. And I couldn't be prouder to be by his side, running to represent
Oh
you.
boy, that was a lot. That was torture.
Thank
But I got to do it.
and
I'm
may God
gonna keep
bless
bringing it to
the
y'all.
United States.
I am bringing these politics to y'all all election season, so you can watch it with me. Let me go ahead and pause it, stop it. That's it. That's what we got. That is the message, folks. That is the VP announcement from Biden and Harris. I'm going to be watching this election season all the way up to Election Day in November. So keep tuning in, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. It's going to be equal opportunity in here. Every debate, these press conferences that come out, the speeches, I'm going to be downloading them, giving my commentary, telling you what I think, especially for the African American ADOS audience. Please tune in, like, subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.